Imagine stepping out of the bustling Roman streets, horns echoing, scooters darting by, espresso perfume still clinging to the air, and then suddenly, it hits you. The shadow of the Colosseum rising like a giant stone titan in the middle of modern life, an ancient heartbeat that still pulses in the center of Rome. This isn't just a ruin. This isn't just some pile of stone left to time. No, this is a time machine carved out of marble and concrete. A colossal amphitheater that once roared with the cheers of 80,000 people. A place where gladiators fought not only for glory but often for survival. Where emperors staged epic spectacles to entertain and control the masses. Where history, blood, and legend fused into something that still leaves you speechless the moment you lay eyes on it. Look closer. Every arch, every scar on its weathered face, tells a story. The Colosseum has stood here for nearly 2,000 years, since the days when Rome ruled most of the known world, and yet even now, as tourists shuffle around with cameras and guides hold up little flags, the echo of its past refuses to fade. It is more than a monument. It's a mirror of human ambition, human cruelty, human genius, and human endurance. Imagine the noise, the smell, the raw adrenaline that once filled this arena. Lions roaring, swords clashing, the crowd chanting, the fate of a man in the sand. You're not just looking at a ruin. You're walking into the beating heart of an empire. And as we wander closer, let's peel back the centuries, brick by brick, until we see not the silent stone giant of today, but the living, breathing spectacle of yesterday. As you step through the arches, you realize this wasn't built overnight. It was engineered with almost impossible precision for its time. Think about it. When construction began in 72 AD under Emperor Vespasian, there were no cranes like we know them today, no modern machinery, yet Roman builders managed to raise a structure that still defies earthquakes, wars, and centuries of neglect. They stacked blocks of travertine stone weighing tons. They laced it together with iron clamps. They poured concrete into forms that created corridors, arches, and vaults, strong enough to hold tens of thousands of people. And they didn't stop at functionality. No, the Colosseum was designed to impress, to overwhelm, to announce to the world that Rome was invincible. The moment you look up at those arches, you see order and hierarchy. 4 levels of seating, each representing the social ladder of ancient Rome. The senators and the elite sat closest to the arena, their silk tunics brushing against marble benches, while the ordinary citizens crowded the higher levels, their cheers mixing into a thunderous wave of sound. At the very top, wooden seats held the poorest Romans, and even women, who often sat, separated yet still part of the roaring chorus. Now imagine the atmosphere on a festival day, thousands lining up outside, hawkers selling food and trinkets, animals in cages rumbling with unease, gladiators preparing backstage, knowing that today could end in glory or in silence. The emperor himself would arrive in procession, greeted with applause, his seat raised above everyone else's, a reminder of absolute power. And when the show began, oh, when it began, the crowd was no longer just an audience. They became a force deciding with their chants and gestures whether a defeated fighter lived to see another dawn or died under the sun. That hand signal, thumbs up or down, has become legend, though historians debate its exact meaning. Still, the drama of that moment is unforgettable. One man's life hanging in the balance, thousands watching, the emperor deciding. Can you feel it? Standing here, you almost hear the ghosts of their voices carried on the Roman wind. Now, as you walk deeper into the Colosseum's corridors, called the vomitoria, don't laugh. It doesn't mean what it sounds like. It means passageways that spew out people. You realize how advanced Roman crowd control really was. These passageways were designed so that the entire arena, packed with tens of thousands of screaming fans, could be emptied in just minutes. Think about that. 2,000 years ago, the Romans had already solved problems that modern stadium architects still study today. And when you climb up, reaching the inner ring that overlooks the arena floor, your breath catches, not just from the view, but from the realization of what happened on that sand. For centuries, This space was a theater of extremes: bloody gladiator duels, wild beast hunts, even full-scale naval battles when the arena was flooded to recreate epic sea fights. Picture it. Water shimmering under the Mediterranean sun, ships clashing right here where tourists now take selfies, the splash of oars and the clash of swords echoing through the stone canyon. And beneath your feet, an entire hidden world once existed. The hypogeum, the underground labyrinth of tunnels, cages, and lifts, was like backstage at the most dramatic show on Earth. Lions, tigers, elephants, even crocodiles were kept below, hauled up by pulleys and trapdoors to explode onto the arena floor in surprise reveals. Imagine the fear, the awe, the sheer chaos as gates burst open and beasts charged into the sunlight. Gladiators, often slaves, prisoners, or sometimes volunteers chasing fame, waited in the darkness below, listening to the muffled thunder of the crowd above, knowing that in minutes their fate would be sealed under those watchful eyes. And yet, despite the violence, the Colosseum was more than a killing ground. It was a symbol, a political tool, a way for emperors to say, "Look, what Rome can build, look what Rome can stage, and as long as I rule, you will never be bored." The bread and circuses of Roman life, offered free to the people, kept them entertained, distracted, loyal. It was propaganda in stone, theater as empire, spectacle as control. And that's why the Colosseum isn't just an arena. It's the ultimate expression of power carved into history. Today we see ruins, broken arches, missing stones. But close your eyes, and you'll feel the heat of a Roman summer, smell the oil lamps burning, hear the clash of steel, the roar of beasts, the chants of thousands echoing into eternity. And as we circle around the arena, think about the craftsmanship, the artistry hidden within these stones. The Colosseum wasn't only a stage for blood and drama. It was a masterpiece of Roman engineering, a marvel of design that has influenced stadiums all around the world. Notice the arches. They weren't just decorative. They distributed weight evenly, allowing the structure to rise higher and wider than anything before it. Notice the numbers carved above the entrances. These were like ancient seat tickets, ensuring that every Roman knew exactly where to go. No chaos, no confusion. And then, above the seating area, imagine the vast awning system, called the velarium, stretched like the sails of a ship. Hundreds of sailors from the Roman Navy were stationed here to unfurl and control the giant canvas sheets that shaded the crowd from the scorching sun. The sight must have been breathtaking. A massive theater capped with a sky of fabric, fluttering above 80,000 spectators. Think, too, of the decorations: statues of gods and emperors, glittering frescoes, marble seats polished smooth by centuries of use. This wasn't just stone. It was Rome showing off its wealth, its power, its culture. And yet, as dazzling as it was, the Colosseum was also a place of contradiction. For every cheer of victory, there was a cry of pain. For every moment of entertainment, there was a life cut short. Gladiators trained for years, some becoming celebrities with fan followings, their faces painted on walls, their names whispered, like legends. Others were thrown into the arena with little chance to survive. Exotic animals were hunted to near extinction just to provide the next jaw-dropping spectacle. And while the citizens laughed and clapped, while emperors smiled, the sand below drank the cost. Standing here now, with grass growing where blood once soaked the earth, you can't help but feel the weight of those ghosts. Yet you also feel awe, because this arena, with all its shadows, is still alive. Tourists walk where emperors once strode. Children peer into the hypogeum where lions once prowled, and the same walls that echoed with the roar of Rome now echo with the hum of modern life. The Colosseum endures, a reminder that empires may fall, but stories carved in stone can outlast eternity. Now picture this. It's early morning in ancient Rome, the sun just beginning to light up the marble temples nearby, and already a line of people is forming outside the Colosseum. Vendors are shouting, selling bread, olives, honey cakes, cheap wine. Children run around tugging at their parents' tunics, and the smell of roasting meat mingles with dust and sweat. Entertainers performed tricks in the streets, jugglers, musicians, dancers, all adding to the carnival atmosphere. For the people of Rome, a day at the Colosseum was more than a show. It was a festival, a rare chance to forget daily struggles. Inside, senators reclined on cushioned marble seats, gossiping and making deals even as gladiators fought below. Merchants and craftsmen in the middle tiers shouted themselves hoarse, betting on their favorite fighters. And at the very top, in the cheap wooden seats, slaves and commoners cheered just as loudly, their voices rising together in a thunderous roar that shook the stone walls. Imagine the energy of 80,000 souls unified, the sound rolling through the arches like a living beast. And then, silence. The trumpet blares, the gates creak open. Out come the gladiators, armor gleaming, helmets catching the sunlight. The crowd surges again, chanting names, stamping feet. Every fight was theater, choreographed in part, but always dangerous, a dance of steel that could end with triumph or death. Some gladiators earned fame, becoming legends, their victories recorded, their likeness painted on walls. Others died nameless, forgotten, but for the brief moment of spectacle they provided. And while the people were entertained, emperors used these games to display generosity, power, and control. Bread and circuses, free food and free shows, kept the masses loyal, distracted from politics, satisfied in their empire. But for us walking here today, the Colosseum is more than propaganda or ruins. It's a lens through time. It's standing where countless others have stood, feeling the same awe, sensing the same scale. It's walking through shadows that stretch across 2,000 years and realizing that humanity hasn't changed so much. We still gather in arenas, we still crave spectacle, we still celebrate strength and drama. The difference is that now, we watch with cameras instead of blood on the sand. And when you pause for a moment, letting your hand brush against the stone, you realize how many lives these walls have witnessed. Prisoners marched from faraway provinces, dragged here in chains to face beasts they had never seen before. Imagine a man from a northern village who had only known forests and snow, suddenly, standing on this hot Roman sand, staring down a lion brought from Africa, an animal so alien it seemed born from myth. The shock, the fear, the disbelief would be overwhelming. Yet the Romans delighted in these encounters, in the clash of man against nature, civilization against wildness, Rome against the world, because that's what the Colosseum symbolized. Not just entertainment, but the empire itself, proving that nothing was beyond Rome's reach. Animals came from Africa, Asia, the Middle East, filling the arena with creatures most Romans would never otherwise see. Elephants trumpeted, ostriches darted, leopards lunged, all sacrificed for the pleasure of the crowd. And it wasn't only gladiators or beasts. There were elaborate shows, mock hunts, executions, even mythological plays staged with astonishing realism. Trapdoors would open, and out would come gods descending from the heavens, or entire forests would be raised, onto the arena floor, complete with trees and artificial streams. The ingenuity was staggering, the imagination limitless. The Colosseum was Hollywood before Hollywood, special effects before technology, and while we might flinch at the cruelty, we cannot help but marvel at the sheer creativity, the boldness of scale. Today, when you stand here and see only broken walls, try to rebuild it in your mind. Banners flying, statues shining, the velarium above casting shade, the arena floor alive with drama. Close your eyes and listen, and you'll hear not silence but the echo of applause, the clash of steel, the growl of beasts, the heartbeat of an empire refusing to fade. As the sun arcs higher over Rome, light spills into every corner of the Colosseum, illuminating the textures of stone, the scars of time, and the genius of Roman architecture. Step closer to the arena floor, and imagine the sand beneath your feet soaked with centuries of history. Not just blood, but sweat, tears, triumph, and despair. You can almost see the gladiators circling, shields raised, eyes locked on their opponent, muscles taut with anticipation. Every strike, every block, every dodge was a story, a life compressed into a single moment of intense focus and courage. And think about the crowd. How human emotion was so raw, so collective. People cheered, jeered, gasped, and even cried together. Wealthy citizens might have had the best seats, but in spirit, everyone was equal in the shared thrill, united by spectacle, by adrenaline, by awe. And yet, the Colosseum was also a place of innovation, where architects and engineers pushed the limits of what was possible. The radial and concentric corridors allowed seamless movement, the seating perfectly angled so that every spectator could see the action, the exits designed to prevent bottlenecks in case of emergencies. The Romans understood psychology and logistics in a way that still amazes modern engineers. Look closely at the stones and you notice inscriptions, names of donors, marks of builders, even graffiti left by ancient fans, perhaps cheering for their favorite gladiator, or leaving a message of hope, or just marking, "I was here." It's a humbling reminder that people, no matter the century, seek connection, expression, and memory. And as you walk along the outer walls, you feel the scale. It's hard to grasp just how massive this arena is until you trace the arches with your hand, until you look up and see the open sky framed by stone, until you imagine 80,000 voices reverberating in perfect chaos. Every stone, every arch, every worn corner tells a story, and the story is not static. It changes as we experience it, as we bring our own wonder, our own imagination into this ancient space. And as you wander around the perimeter, you notice the way sunlight and shadow play across the arches, giving the impression that the Colosseum is breathing, alive in its own way. The eastern side catches the morning sun, casting long golden beams across the arena floor, while the western side rests in gentle shadow, reminding you that even stone can hold mystery. Imagine the performances that took place here. Naval reenactments, flooding the arena, with water glinting in the sunlight and miniature ships clashing, creating a spectacle that must have seemed almost magical to the people of Rome. And beneath your feet, in the hippodrome, picture the workers and gladiators moving unseen, lifting cages, preparing animals, adjusting trapdoors, orchestrating the hidden machinery that made these grand illusions possible. This underground labyrinth is a marvel in itself, a testament to Roman ingenuity, with its network of tunnels, elevators, and cages that allowed the arena to transform in moments. Today, you walk these passageways quietly, but centuries ago, they would have echoed with commands, roars, and the nervous murmurs of men and beasts alike. And don't forget the stories, the heroism, the tragedy, the legend. Names of gladiators survive, inscribed on stone or remembered in manuscripts, their fame transcending death. Some were volunteers seeking glory, others slaves fighting for survival, all bound together by the shared drama of the arena. And while the Colosseum was a place of violence, it was also a place of celebration, festivals that could last days, honoring gods, emperors, or military victories. The architecture itself reflects this duality, beautiful yet brutal, precise yet overwhelming, designed to inspire awe while maintaining absolute control. And as you imagine the cheers, the roars, the clang of swords, the bellowing of exotic beasts, you realize the Colosseum is not just stone and concrete. It's the memory of humanity in all its extremes, a place where courage, fear, ambition, and spectacle collided in unforgettable ways. Standing here, you don't just see history. You feel it, as if time itself bends to let you glimpse the heartbeat of an empire that continues to echo across millennia. And as your eyes travel up the tiers of seating, notice how the Romans considered even the smallest details. The benches were carved for comfort, the entrances carefully numbered and marked to control the massive flow of people, the walls reinforced to endure centuries of wear. Every feature was meticulously planned, a blend of engineering brilliance and social hierarchy. Senators and nobles occupied the lower tiers, their proximity to the arena a statement of power and privilege, while the general populace filled the upper tiers, their collective energy forming a human tide that amplified every sound. And speaking of sound, imagine the acoustics. The Colosseum was designed so that the roar of the crowd would carry evenly across all levels, every cheer, every gasp, every shout amplified in ways that modern architects still study. Now consider the velarium, That massive retractable awning stretched over the upper levels, controlled by hundreds of sailors who adjusted it to shield spectators from the blazing sun or sudden rain. It's hard to overstate the complexity. This was thousands of years ago, yet the Romans had mastered crowd management, engineering, and theatrical spectacle in ways that rival modern stadiums. And then there's the sand itself. The floor of the arena wasn't just dirt, it was carefully layered to absorb blood and provide traction for combatants and animals alike. Below it, the hypogum, a network of tunnels and cages, held everything. From lions to elephants, gladiators waiting in the shadows, engineers ready to spring them into action. You can almost hear the anticipation, the shuffling feet, the low growls, the whispered prayers. And yet, even with all this violence and spectacle, the Colosseum was also a place of art. Sculptures adorned the walls, frescoes decorated niches, and inscriptions immortalized the emperors and the donors who made these grand shows possible. Every element communicated status, power, and Roman identity. Walking here today, the stone may be worn, the walls broken, the sand long gone, but the essence remains. You can feel it, the tension, the excitement, the humanity that once thrummed through every arch and corridor. It's as if the Colosseum isn't a relic at all, but a living storyteller whispering tales of triumph, terror, creativity, and ambition to anyone willing to listen. And when you leave, you carry that story with you. Because in the Colosseum, you don't just witness history, you step inside it, and for a moment you become part of a narrative that has lasted for millennia, a testament to the grandeur, complexity, and enduring spirit of Rome. The weathered travertine blocks, the chisel marks of ancient builders, the subtle erosion from centuries of rain, wind, and even earthquakes. Each crack and scar tells a story, a silent witness to the thousands of events that unfolded here. Imagine, for a moment, the Colosseum not as ruins, but as a bustling arena. Merchants hawking food and trinkets, families arriving early to secure seats, children darting between adults, their laughter mingling with the distant roar of the crowd. Gladiators prepare in hidden chambers, stretching muscles, testing swords, steeling themselves for the battle to come. Above, the sun catches the metallic glint of armor, illuminating the warriors as they step into the arena, weapons in hand, hearts pounding. And yet, the spectacle wasn't just about combat. The Romans loved drama, myth, and pageantry. They staged elaborate reenactments of famous battles, sometimes flooding the arena to recreate naval engagements, entire forests built from wood and foliage for mythical hunts. The ingenuity is staggering. Trapdoors lifted hidden animals or surprise fighters, pulleys elevated scenery and props, and even hydraulics were used to manipulate water and create astonishing effects. The audience would have been enthralled, swept away in a performance that was part theater, part sport, part political statement, because every event in the Colosseum was carefully crafted to impress, distract, and reinforce the power of Rome. And as you walk these corridors today, you can almost feel the pulse of the past, the echoes of applause, the collective gasp, the fearful whispers, the cries of triumph and despair. It all lingers in the stone, waiting for those who take the time to listen. And it's impossible not to marvel at the scale, the ambition, the genius that went into creating something meant to awe not just the citizens of Rome, but the world itself. The Colosseum, after all, is more than an arena. It's a living monument to human creativity, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of grandeur, a place where history, legend, and imagination converge in a way that no other structure can match. The air would have been thick with dust, sweat, and the scent of animals, the sound of clashing swords and shouted commands reverberating off the walls in a cacophony that must have been overwhelming. And consider the psychology of it all. The Romans understood the power of spectacle, of controlled chaos. The Colosseum was designed not just for entertainment but for influence, to shape emotion, to manipulate crowds, to awe and intimidate. The structure itself embodies this duality, massive and imposing, yet intricate and precise, demonstrating strength and sophistication simultaneously. Imagine the preparation that went into each event. Animals captured from distant lands, gladiators trained in specialized schools, props and scenery constructed to create scenes from myth and history. Sometimes, naval battles were staged by flooding the arena, the logistics of which were nothing short of miraculous given the technology of the time. The hypogeum below the arena floor was a marvel in itself, a labyrinth of tunnels, cages, and lifts that allowed the Romans to orchestrate spectacles with the efficiency and flair of modern stage productions. And yet, amidst all this engineering, genius, and theatrical splendor, there was raw human drama, the courage, fear, triumph, and despair of those who fought, often with their lives on the line. Walking through the Colosseum today, you can't help but feel that tension lingering in the stone, a silent testament to the intensity of life here centuries ago. And as you gaze upward, imagine the velarium stretched overhead, casting moving shadows across the sand, sailors adjusting the massive canvas to shield spectators from the harsh sun, the entire space alive with motion, sound, and anticipation. And as you wander higher toward the upper tiers, the view opens up, not just across the arena, but across the city itself. From here you can imagine Rome stretching outward in all directions, temples glinting in the sun, the Tiber River winding like a silver ribbon, rooftops bustling with life. The Colosseum was not just a standalone marvel, it was the centerpiece of a vibrant urban landscape, integrated into the rhythm of Roman life. And think about the crowds, tens of thousands of spectators, layered in concentric tiers, each person with a role, each emotion feeding into the collective experience. From the emperor's exalted seat to the wooden benches at the top, the design ensured visibility, sound, and even safety, all while emphasizing hierarchy and social order. And yet, despite this order, the energy must have been chaotic, electrifying. The roar of voices, the pounding of feet, the sudden gasp when a lion leapt into the arena, the exclamations when a gladiator delivered a heroic blow. The amphitheater was alive, a living organism fueled by spectacle and human emotion. Imagine, too, the festivals and special games, often lasting multiple days, incorporating theatrical reenactments of mythology, historical battles, or even executions, staged as dramatic cautionary tales. The Romans loved drama, and they loved precision. The Colosseum allowed them to combine both at a scale unmatched in the ancient world. And beneath your feet, in the hypogeum, you can picture the hidden machinery, elevators, trapdoors, and cages, moving with synchronized timing to create moments of shock, awe, and wonder. Today, when you trace the corridors and arches with your eyes, it's tempting to think of it as a museum or tourist site, but in reality, the Colosseum is more than that. It's a storyteller, whispering tales of courage, fear, human ingenuity, cruelty, and triumph across the centuries. Every worn stone, every scar, every shadow holds a memory, a fragment of the countless lives and stories that passed through this magnificent arena, reminding us that the past is never truly gone. It lives on in the echoes, in the imagination, and in the awe it inspires today. And as you pause to absorb the sheer scale, you realize that every step you take has been mirrored countless times over centuries, by gladiators striding into combat, by citizens cheering in anticipation, by emperors observing with calculated authority. The Colosseum wasn't simply a structure, it was an experience designed to stir the deepest emotions, to impress, intimidate, and inspire awe. Consider the details, the radial corridors and staircases that allowed the entire arena to fill and empty with astounding efficiency, the carved numbers indicating seating sections, the subtle architectural curves ensuring that sight lines were unobstructed no matter where you sat. This attention to detail demonstrates that the Romans were not only builders, but also psychologists of the human experience, orchestrating how tens of thousands of people would see, hear, and feel every spectacle. And imagine the artistry, sculpted statues adorning niches, frescoes depicting heroes and gods, inscriptions celebrating victories, all woven into the fabric of the structure. The Colosseum was a stage for power, art, and life itself. And yet it was also a place of tragedy and mortality. Each sand-covered duel was a high-stakes drama, where skill, courage, and luck determined whether a gladiator survived or perished. Lions and exotic beasts dragged from distant continents embodied the empire's reach and dominance, while also presenting a deadly challenge to human combatants. The crowd's collective energy was a force unto itself, amplifying tension and shaping the fate of those in the arena. And above it all, the velarium stretched like a giant protective canopy, its hundreds of ropes manipulated by sailors, shielding spectators from the unforgiving sun and adding a dynamic visual element to the spectacle. Walking through the Colosseum, today you can feel all these layers: engineering brilliance, theatrical genius, social hierarchy, human emotion, resonating in the stone, reminding us that this was more than an arena. It was the heart of Roman culture, a living monument to ambition, creativity, and the complexity of human society, where the echoes of the past continue to inspire awe in anyone who steps within its arches. And as you move along the outer perimeter, it's impossible not to imagine the Roman engineers and laborers who brought this monumental vision to life. Thousands of hands worked tirelessly, hauling travertine blocks, mixing concrete, and crafting arches that would withstand centuries. Every detail, from the curve of the seating tiers to the placement of corridors and exits, was calculated to perfection. The amphitheater was designed not merely to house spectators but to control them, to manage movement, to maximize excitement, and to elevate the emperor's presence over every citizen. Step inside the arena itself, and let your imagination reconstruct the scene. Gladiators sharpening swords in dimly lit chambers, slaves scurrying with equipment, exotic animals pacing in their cages, the smell of straw and sweat hanging heavy in the air. The first trumpet sounds, and the gates open. The crowd erupts. Steel clashes, leather armor rattles, the roar of lions and the gasp of onlookers fill every corner. Each battle, each performance, was carefully orchestrated to awe and astonish, but also to communicate power, that the Roman Empire could conquer both man and nature, history and myth. And think about the ingenuity required for the naval reenactments. Water flooding the arena, ships maneuvering in a confined space, a spectacle so realistic it must have seemed like the gods themselves were directing the events. The hypogeum, the labyrinth below, was a masterpiece of logistics, allowing for surprise entrances, sudden appearances of beasts, and the smooth operation of complex events. Every element of the Colosseum was a choreography of human skill and ambition. Yet despite the intensity and violence, the Colosseum was also a place of artistry. Statues adorned niches, frescoes depicted heroes and gods, and inscriptions commemorated victories and sponsors. The combination of architecture, engineering, social hierarchy, and performance created a living monument that communicated power, inspired awe, and reflected the complexity of Roman society. Walking through it today, you can almost hear the echoes of cheering crowds, the clash of steel, the roar of animals, the tension and triumph that once filled this space. Every corner, every stone, every shadow tells a story, reminding us that the Colosseum was more than a building. It was a stage for history itself, a testament to human ambition, creativity, and the enduring fascination with spectacle, courage, and drama that continues to captivate all who enter its monumental embrace. And as you wander along the upper tiers, the panorama of Rome stretches out before you, merging past and present in a breathtaking view. From here, you can see the rooftops, the winding streets, the Tiber glinting in the sun, and you realize the Colosseum wasn't just an isolated monument. It was the centerpiece of a living, breathing city. Tens of thousands of Romans would gather, here carrying with them the smells, sounds, and energy of the city into this vast arena. Picture the day's festival, merchants calling out, children darting through the crowd, the aroma of bread, roasted meats, and wine filling the air, entertainers performing tricks to earn a coin, and the anticipation building as gladiators prepared for combat. The first trumpet blast pierced the din, the gates creaked open, and the spectacle began. The clash of steel, the roar of the audience, the cries of animals, all orchestrated with precision. Beneath the sand, the hypogeum hummed with activity. Trapdoors lifted, lifts carried animals and scenery, and fighters moved through hidden corridors, all choreographed to create moments of awe and terror. And above, The velarium stretched across the upper tiers, a massive flowing canopy that added drama, protection, and scale to the performance. Even in its ruinous state, the Colosseum communicates its story of ambition, ingenuity, courage, and spectacle. With every arch, corridor, and scarred wall, walking these stones today, you feel the pulse of history, the echo of triumph and despair, the ingenuity of Roman engineering, and the theatrical mastery that created a monument capable of holding not just bodies, but hearts, imaginations, and the collective memory of an empire. The Colosseum is more than architecture. It is a living narrative, a stage for human emotion, a place where time bends, allowing us to witness the extraordinary blend of power, art, and human spirit that defined ancient Rome. A monument whose story continues to resonate millennia after the last roar faded into silence. And as you circle the arena floor, notice the layers of history embedded in every stone. Each arch, each scar, each worn corner carries the memory of thousands of spectators, gladiators, and animals that once animated this space. Imagine the anticipation of the crowd as the gates opened, their cheers swelling in a wave that filled the arena, vibrating through the stone. Picture the gladiators trained for years stepping into the sunlight, their armor gleaming, muscles tense, hearts racing, knowing that every movement could mean life or death. Exotic animals, brought from the farthest reaches of the empire, prowled or lunged, adding danger and spectacle to the performance. And beneath the sand, the hippodrome, an underground labyrinth of tunnels, cages, and lifts, functioned like a living organism, orchestrating the seamless entrance of combatants and creatures, creating moments of surprise and awe for the audience above. The Colosseum was also a marvel of social engineering. The seating reflected the hierarchy of Roman society, from the emperor and elite in the lower tiers to ordinary citizens and slaves in the upper wooden sections, all experiencing the drama, together in a carefully orchestrated harmony. And above it all, the velarium provided shade, adding both comfort and theatricality to the experience. Festivals sometimes lasted days, combining historical reenactments, mythical narratives, and elaborate hunts, demonstrating the Romans' ability to blend entertainment, politics, and engineering on an unprecedented scale. Standing here today, amidst the worn stones and echoing arches, you can feel the pulse of history, the triumphs, the fears, the excitement, and the ingenuity, resonating in every corner. The Colosseum is more than a ruin. It is a living testament to human creativity, resilience, and the extraordinary ambition of an empire that continues to inspire awe, inviting all who enter to step into the heartbeat of history itself. And as you walk through the arches on the northern side, you begin to appreciate the Colosseum not just as an arena, but as a monumental storybook etched in stone. Each arch frames a moment, a perspective of the past, a window into the lives of thousands of people who once gathered here. The engineering precision is astonishing. Radial corridors that allowed tens of thousands to move efficiently, numbered entrances guiding spectators to their seats, and seating angles calculated so every eye had a perfect view of the action. Imagine the morning sunlight spilling onto the arena floor, illuminating gladiators preparing in the shadows, their armor glinting, muscles tense, anticipation electrifying the air. Exotic animals, lions, elephants, leopards, paced in cages below, ready to burst into the arena at the perfect dramatic moment. The hippodrome functioned like a hidden orchestra, pulleys and trapdoors moving scenery, beasts, and combatants with flawless timing. And above, the velarium stretched like a massive sail, shading the audience, its flowing movement adding both drama and comfort. The crowd itself was a living entity, from the emperor and senators seated at the bottom to ordinary citizens and slaves in the upper tiers, each emotion amplifying the next in a wave of excitement and tension. Festivals could last days, combining mock naval battles, theatrical reenactments of myth and history, and the display of exotic beasts, all choreographed to awe, entertain, and demonstrate the power of Rome. Walking here today, amid the worn stones and echoing arches, you feel the Colosseum's heartbeat, the courage, fear, ingenuity, and spectacle resonating through time. It's not just architecture, it's a living narrative, a fusion of engineering, theater, society, and human emotion, reminding us that Rome's ambition and creativity continue to captivate all who step into its monumental embrace. And as you trace the curvature of the outer walls, the scale of the Colosseum becomes even more astonishing. Imagine the sheer labor involved in constructing this marvel. Thousands of Roman workers hauling travertine, shaping arches, laying precise foundations that have withstood millennia. Every stone was placed with purpose, every curve calculated, not merely for beauty but for strength, acoustics, and visibility. Step into the arena, and the imagination takes over. The smell of dust and sweat, the tension of fighters, the rustle of animals beneath the floor, the collective gasp of tens of thousands of spectators. Gladiators moved with practiced precision, swords and shields clashing in a rhythm that both entertained and terrified, each moment a blend of skill, strategy, and survival. The hypogum below was alive with secret machinery, lifts, trapdoors, cages, orchestrating entrances and dramatic surprises, making the arena a stage of wonder and fear. And above it all, the velarium stretched across the upper tiers, shielding spectators from the sun while adding a dynamic, flowing presence to the architecture. Festivals and games often lasted days, combining historical reenactments, mythical storytelling, and dangerous animal hunts, demonstrating the Romans' mastery of spectacle, engineering, and social control. Today, walking through the Colosseum, you can almost hear the echoes, the roar of the crowd, the clash of weapons, the bellow of beasts, the whispered prayers of those about to step into the arena. The Colosseum is more than a building. It is a living chronicle of human ambition, courage, and creativity. It reminds us that architecture can embody power, emotion, and story, and that the spirit of Rome, with all its grandeur and complexity, continues to resonate across centuries, inviting every visitor to step inside the heartbeat of history itself. And as you wander the upper galleries, the Colosseum reveals its layered genius. The seating was carefully calculated to maximize visibility, every tier angled so that no spectator missed a single clash of swords or roar of an exotic beast. Imagine tens of thousands of Romans packed into these tiers, their anticipation building with every drumbeat, trumpet blast, or shout of the herald. The elite lounged in marble comfort near the arena floor, observing and being observed while the masses filled the wooden upper seats, voices merging into a thunderous wave that reverberated through the arches. And beneath the sand, the hypogum, a labyrinth of tunnels, lifts, and cages, orchestrated the unseen drama. Gladiators, animals, and props moved with perfect timing, creating moments of shock and awe for those above. Festivals could stretch over days, featuring elaborate mock battles, naval reenactments, and theatrical storytelling, all designed to celebrate the power and sophistication of Rome. The velarium overhead provided not just shade, but a moving, dynamic element that added grandeur and spectacle, controlled by skilled sailors who adjusted the massive canvas to match the sun's position. Today, the echoes of the past are subtle but palpable, the roar of the crowd replaced by the hum of modern visitors, yet the pulse of anticipation, tension, and drama still seems to linger in the stone. The Colosseum is more than architecture. It is a living monument to human ingenuity, courage, creativity, and the sheer will to awe. Every scar, every arch, every weathered surface tells a story, inviting us to step into a space where history, legend, and human spirit converge, reminding us that Rome's ambition continues to resonate across centuries, inspiring awe in all who enter its monumental embrace. Standing before the Colosseum, the sheer immensity of this architectural wonder overwhelms the senses, demanding attention, inviting awe, and compelling reflection. For it is not merely stone and concrete, but the living embodiment of the ambitions, ingenuity, and passions of an empire that has shaped the very course of history. A space where the echoes of human triumph and tragedy intermingle, where the roar of tens of thousands of spectators, long faded into memory, can still be imagined vibrating through the arches and corridors as if time itself refuses to let the Colosseum remain silent. Where the gladiators once trained and fought, their muscles coiled, armor glinting, hearts pounding, fully aware that every step could be their last. yet moving with courage born of discipline, pride, and the desire for glory. And where beneath the arena floor lies the hippodrome, a labyrinthine masterpiece of engineering, a subterranean network of tunnels, cages, lifts, and pulleys that orchestrated the entrances of exotic animals, props, and fighters in perfect timing, allowing the Romans to create spectacles so intricate that they combined danger, drama, and artistry in ways that modern engineers and directors still study with amazement. And as one's gaze rises along the concentric tiers, the careful planning of seating becomes apparent, from the emperor and senators in marble comfort at the lowest levels to the citizens, merchants, and artisans in the mid-tiers, to the upper wooden benches filled with women, slaves, and the lower classes, each tier reflecting the hierarchy and order of Roman society, yet all unified in a shared experience of anticipation and excitement. For the Colosseum was not merely a place of entertainment, but a stage where politics, power, and propaganda fused seamlessly with human emotion, a place where every detail, from the numbers carved above entrances to the radial corridors and staircases, designed to manage tens of thousands of spectators efficiently, was carefully considered to enhance the drama, control the flow, and maximize the spectacle, where the velarium stretched like a massive flowing canopy overhead, controlled by skilled sailors to provide shade and comfort, while adding a dynamic, almost theatrical presence to the architecture, a canopy that would shift and flutter with the wind, creating moving shadows on the arena floor, and subtly affecting the mood and atmosphere, and where the festivals and games themselves could last for days, incorporating elaborate reenactments of historical battles, theatrical depictions of myth, hunts of exotic animals brought from Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, and mock naval battles that required the arena to be flooded with water, demonstrating the Romans' remarkable ability to blend engineering, logistics, and imagination into unforgettable experiences, while the crowd, a living entity of human emotion, reacted as one, voices merging into a singular wave of sound that reverberated through the stone, creating an immersive environment where each cheer, gasp, and cry of fear contributed to the intensity and drama of the spectacle, and where the architecture itself was both functional and symbolic. Arches providing strength while framing views, corridors guiding movement while reflecting social hierarchies, and inscriptions and sculptures communicating status, legacy, and cultural identity. While the sand of the arena, carefully layered to absorb blood and provide traction, bore witness to the lives and deaths of gladiators and animals alike, and as the mind wanders through the ages, one can almost hear the trumpets, the clash of swords, the roars of lions, and the whispered prayers of men facing their fates, a soundscape that blends heroism, tragedy, and the raw spectacle of survival. And one can imagine the artisans and builders, thousands of hands shaping the travertine, carving statues, laying the stones with precision, calculating angles, sightlines, and acoustics to ensure that every spectator, whether noble or slave, could experience the drama fully, while the city of Rome pulsed around the Colosseum, a vibrant urban landscape of streets, markets, temples, and homes, feeding energy and life into the arena, where children played, merchants sold bread and wine, entertainers performed tricks for coins, and the smells, sounds, and motion of the city merged with the intensity of the spectacle, so that attending the games was not just witnessing combat, but immersing oneself in a microcosm of Roman civilization itself, a convergence of ambition, culture, technology, and human emotion. And as the day progressed, shadows shifted, the sunlight illuminating the arches and corridors in ever-changing patterns, highlighting textures, scars, and details, while the wind whispered through the stone, carrying imagined echoes of centuries of spectators, each one contributing to the memory, the atmosphere, and the story. And in that moment, standing amidst ruins yet alive with history, the Colosseum transcends its material form, becoming a lens through which we view human ingenuity, resilience, creativity, and the enduring desire for spectacle, a monument that embodies both the beauty and brutality of civilization, reminding us that architecture can be more than shelter. It can be a stage, a story, a living experience, a place where time folds upon itself and the past resonates so vividly that one can almost step into it, walk with the gladiators, feel the roar of the crowd, sense the tension of life and death, and witness the extraordinary fusion of art, engineering, and human ambition that continues to captivate, inspire, and humble all who enter its monumental embrace. And even today, as tourists wander through its arches, tracing worn stones with their hands, imagining the echoes of a 2,000-year-old spectacle, the Colosseum speaks not just of Rome, but of the universal human fascination with courage, drama, creativity, and the relentless pursuit of grandeur, a place where history, memory, architecture, and storytelling converge into a singular, overwhelming experience where every detail, every stone, every shadow contributes to a narrative so vast, so layered, and so immersive that it defies simple description, demanding attention, reflection, and awe. A narrative that stretches across millennia, encompassing the sweat, skill, fear, and triumph of thousands upon thousands of souls who have passed through, leaving traces in stone, in story, and in the collective imagination of the world. And as one imagines the gladiators' final moments, the roar of the crowd, the cunning of the engineers, the artistry of the sculptors, the vision of the emperors, and the ingenuity of countless laborers, the Colosseum emerges not merely as a ruin, but as an eternal testament to human ambition, a monument where the extraordinary scale of human imagination, endurance, and artistry can be felt in every footstep, every breath, every glance, and where standing within its arches allows one to experience simultaneously history, theater, drama, power, and the unbroken pulse of civilization itself, a pulse that continues to echo through time, inviting all who enter to witness, to feel, to imagine, and to marvel at one of the greatest achievements of the human spirit, a place where the story of Rome, with all its ambition, creativity, triumph, and tragedy, is inscribed in stone and sand, air, and shadow, a place where the past lives vividly, tangibly, and without end, a single, continuous monument to the grandeur, complexity, and indomitable spirit of humanity, an experience that cannot be summarized, only felt as the Colosseum in all its glory and ruin stands as a living narrative of ambition, ingenuity, courage, spectacle, and the unyielding desire of humans to create something that transcends time, space, and mortality itself, a story so vast, so immersive, and so continuous that it stretches across every moment, every observation, every breath of every visitor who has walked its corridors or imagined its past, a story that is both singular and infinite, embodied in stone, shadow, light, and imagination, and continuing to unfold, century after century, for all who enter its monumental embrace, for all who dare to witness the heartbeat of history, the drama of life and death, and the extraordinary legacy of a civilization that continues to inspire awe, wonder, and reflection across millennia, reminding us that human ambition, creativity, and the pursuit of spectacle can leave an imprint so profound, so enduring, and so monumental, that even 2,000 years later, the Colosseum speaks to every visitor as a living, breathing story, an unbroken testament to the power, ingenuity, and imagination of Rome, a story that continues to unfold endlessly, infinitely, and magnificently in the minds, hearts, and imaginations of all who step within its arches, corridors, and shadows enveloped by history, drama, and the unrelenting pulse of human achievement, a story that deserves not just to be seen, but to be experienced, absorbed, imagined, and cherished, a narrative that stretches across the entirety of time, culture, and human curiosity, a monument that is at once ruin, theater, history, architecture, and story, a single continuous testament to the extraordinary vision, ambition, and spirit of an empire, immortalized in stone, shadow, and imagination, endlessly inspiring those who stand within its embrace to marvel, reflect, and dream. And as you linger in the shadow of the arches, letting your eyes wander across the concentric layers of stone, the sheer scale and ambition of the Colosseum becomes almost overwhelming, for it is not merely a building, but a canvas of human ingenuity and creativity, a place where centuries of history are etched into every scar, every crack, every carefully placed block, and where the imagination can reconstruct scenes of astonishing spectacle. From the roar of tens of thousands of spectators swelling as the gates open, to the gleaming armor of gladiators stepping into the arena, to the rustle of exotic animals in hidden cages beneath the floor, their sudden appearances orchestrated by the hypogeum, that subterranean network of tunnels, lifts, pulleys, and corridors, a labyrinthine system of engineering brilliance that allowed the Romans to stage moments of drama, surprise, and awe with precision that would rival the greatest theaters of the modern world. And as one considers the courage and skill of the gladiators, trained from youth in distant ludus, their muscles coiled, hearts pounding, minds focused, facing both man and beast in combat where every movement could mean life or death, and the artistry involved in every festival, from elaborate reenactments of historical battles to mythical dramas and mock naval engagements that required the arena to be flooded, one realizes that the Colosseum was simultaneously a place of life, death, art, politics, and spectacle, a stage upon which the Romans demonstrated the full scope of their empire's power, reach, and technological mastery. And yet it was also a mirror of human emotion, for the crowd itself became a living entity, tens of thousands of voices merging into a single wave of sound that reverberated through the arches, a symphony of anticipation, excitement, fear, and triumph. Each cheer, gasp, and cry amplifying the drama unfolding before them, and every tier of seating told a story, from the emperor and senators in marble comfort at the lowest levels, asserting their authority and visibility to ordinary citizens, artisans, and merchants in the mid-tiers to women, slaves, and the lower classes in the upper wooden sections, each group experiencing the spectacle from a perspective shaped by social hierarchy, yet all united by the collective thrill of the games, while, above, the massive velarium, controlled by skilled sailors, shifted and flowed like a living sail, shading spectators, adding movement and drama, and creating a dynamic atmosphere that changed with the sun, wind, and the time of day, enhancing the sensory experience of the arena, while the surrounding city, the streets, markets, and Tiber River contributed their own energy, feeding the arena with the pulse of urban life, the smells, sounds, and movement blending seamlessly with the drama below. And as one imagines the preparation, the artisans carving statues, laying travertine blocks with precision, sculptors creating niches and reliefs, engineers calculating load-bearing arches, staircases and corridors to allow tens of thousands of people to move efficiently, and the planners organizing festivals that could last days, incorporating theatrical storytelling, military reenactments, and exotic animal hunts, the mind reels at the complexity, sophistication, and ambition embodied in a single structure. And even today, as one walks these stones, tracing the worn surfaces, imagining the roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, the growl of lions, and the whispered prayers of fighters, the Colosseum speaks across millennia, not as a static ruin, but as a living, breathing narrative of human creativity, resilience, courage, and the unrelenting pursuit of spectacle, a place where architecture, society, engineering, art, drama, and emotion converge into a single, overwhelming experience, where every detail, every shadow, every scar contributes to the story, and one can almost feel the pulse of ancient Rome, the tension, the triumph, the fear, the excitement, coursing through the stone, through the arches, through the sand that once covered the arena floor, absorbing and amplifying the energy of centuries, a sand that bore witness to the lives and deaths of gladiators, animals, and countless others. And through it all, the Colosseum endures, not merely as a monument of stone, but as a vessel of memory, a chronicle of civilization, a stage for the drama of humanity that continues to captivate, inspire, and humble all who enter, reminding us that ambition, ingenuity, and creativity, when combined with courage, artistry, and vision, can create something timeless, something monumental, something that transcends both mortality and the passage of centuries, a narrative that continues without end, a story written in stone, shadow, sound, and imagination, inviting every visitor to step into it, feel it, experience it, and become, for a fleeting moment, part of the heartbeat of history itself, a heartbeat that has survived earthquakes, invasions, the passage of empires, and the inexorable march of time, a heartbeat that continues to resonate, to echo, to inspire awe and reflection, a pulse of human achievement that reminds us that the pursuit of spectacle, beauty, and drama is an eternal part of the human condition. And as one imagines the full extent of festivals, the roar of the crowd, the intricate choreography of the hypogum, the precision of the architecture, the skill of artisans and engineers, the bravery of gladiators, the majesty of exotic beasts, the strategic planning of emperors, the laughter, tears, and gasps of spectators across centuries, the Colosseum emerges not merely as a ruin, but as an eternal testament to ambition, imagination, courage, and the enduring human desire to create, to awe, to inspire, and to leave a legacy that will continue to speak across the ages. A single, unbroken story written in the language of stone, sand, shadow, and imagination. A story that can never be fully contained. A story that invites, compels, and overwhelms. A story that is the Colosseum itself. And as you pause to let your gaze sweep over the arena, it becomes clear that the Colosseum is not merely a monument to architecture, but a living narrative of human experience, ambition, and spectacle, for it encapsulates the genius of Roman engineering in ways that are almost unimaginable. From the precisely measured radial corridors that allowed tens of thousands of spectators to enter and exit safely and efficiently, to the numbered entrances, guiding citizens to their respective tiers, to the seating carefully calibrated to reflect social hierarchy, ensuring that emperors and senators had the most advantageous views while the common people observed from higher tiers, all while maintaining perfect sightlines and acoustics. And as your imagination reconstructs the scene, you can almost hear the roar of tens of thousands of voices swelling with anticipation, the trumpet blasts signaling the start of a gladiatorial combat, the subtle creak of armor, the heavy, rhythmic footsteps of warriors pacing nervously beneath the shadowed corridors of the hypogum, and the low growl of lions, tigers, and leopards, hidden in cages, whose sudden appearances would send shivers through the spectators, a meticulously orchestrated symphony of chaos and control, drama and precision, where every movement was timed with masterful skill, for the Romans understood that entertainment was not merely spectacle, but a demonstration of power, social order, and technological prowess. And as you imagine the gladiators themselves, trained from youth in distant ludus, honed in the art of combat, disciplined in both skill and strategy, and facing the terrifying uncertainty of each battle, it is impossible not to feel both awe and empathy, knowing that courage, strength, and human spirit were on display alongside the prowess of Rome's logistical and engineering mastery. And as your eyes wander to the arches above, framing views of the surrounding city, the rooftops, the winding streets, the distant Tiber River, you realize that the Colosseum was never isolated. It was the pulsating heart of an empire, drawing in the energy, commerce, culture, and life of the surrounding urban landscape. The smells of bread, roasted meats, and wine mixing with dust, and the faint scent of animals, the calls of merchants and entertainers weaving through the anticipation and excitement of the audience, and all of it converging into a sensory overload that transformed attending the games into an immersive, unforgettable experience. While beneath the sand, the hypogum continued to operate like a living organism, pulleys and lifts moving exotic animals and scenery into the arena, gates opening to create moments of shock and wonder, tunnels guiding gladiators into position, hidden chambers concealing the intricate preparation that made every spectacle a marvel of timing and drama, and above the massive velarium, stretched like a flowing canopy by skilled sailors, cast moving shadows across the arena, offering relief from the sun while adding a dynamic visual element that changed with every gust of wind, every shift in the sunlight, and as you imagine the festivals that could last days, incorporating mock naval battles, historical reenactments, and mythological performances, the mind reels at the sheer ambition and scope. For these were events not merely of entertainment but of politics, education, and empire, displaying Rome's dominion over nature, culture, and humanity. And as you walk along the worn stones of the corridors, tracing the scars left by centuries of footfalls, by time, by the very passage of history itself, you feel the pulse of all those who have walked here. Before you, the gladiators, the spectators, the artisans, the engineers, the emperors, and the ordinary citizens, all leaving traces in the architecture, the sand, the stone, and the atmosphere, a living memory etched into the fabric of the Colosseum, which, despite earthquakes, invasions, and the relentless march of time, continues to tell its story with unmatched clarity, resonance, and power, reminding every visitor that the Colosseum is not merely a relic of the past, but a stage where human ingenuity, courage, drama, and spectacle converge, where the imagination can roam freely across centuries, where the echoes of triumph and tragedy mingle with the brilliance of engineering and artistry, and where one can contemplate the interplay of life, death, power, society, and emotion in a way that few other spaces in the world allow. And as you absorb these layers, the engineering marvels, the social dynamics, the sensory experiences, the historical anecdotes, the artistry of sculptures and reliefs, the strategic orchestration of events, the courage of those who risked their lives, the collective energy of tens of thousands of spectators, the beauty and danger of exotic animals, the interplay of light and shadow, the presence of the city surrounding the Colosseum, and the eternal resonance of centuries of history, it becomes evident that this single structure encapsulates the essence of Rome itself, a civilization that sought to impress, to educate, to control, and to inspire, a civilization that understood the power of architecture to communicate, to evoke emotion, and to create lasting legacy, and as the sun shifts, casting new shadows, illuminating new textures, highlighting the arches and corridors, drawing attention to the weathered stone, the carved inscriptions, the niches that once held statues of gods and emperors, one can feel the Colosseum as a living entity, breathing through stone and shadow, alive with memory and imagination, a monument that is simultaneously ruin and masterpiece, theater and arena, stage and classroom, history and imagination, a place where the past converges with the present, where time folds, where every visitor can feel the pulse of an empire, the heartbeat of civilization, and the indomitable spirit of humanity, a pulse that continues to resonate through centuries, inviting reflection, awe, wonder, and deep appreciation for the complexity, beauty, drama, and ambition that defines the Colosseum, making it not merely a building but an eternal narrative of life, death, courage, spectacle, and the enduring power of human achievement, an experience that unfolds continuously in the mind, heart, and imagination of all who enter, a story without beginning or end, expanding infinitely with each new visitor, a single, continuous paragraph of history, architecture, drama, and human spirit that stretches across millennia, capturing everything that makes the Colosseum one of the greatest monuments to human ambition, creativity, and imagination ever conceived, a monument where architecture, society, and storytelling merge seamlessly, where every detail, from the cracks in the stone to the flow of the crowd, from the roar of imagined spectators to the whisper of the wind through arches, contributes to a narrative so vast, so layered, and so immersive that one cannot help but feel simultaneously humbled, inspired, and connected to a civilization that continues to speak to us across the ages. And as you stand in awe, tracing your hands along the stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, imagining the lives, the fears, the triumphs, the spectacles, the stories, the music, the drama, and the emotions that have reverberated here, you realize that the Colosseum is more than stone, more than history, more than architecture. It is a living, breathing, eternal testament to human ingenuity, creativity, courage, drama, society, and the universal desire to create experiences that transcend time, a single continuous narrative that stretches across millennia, inviting all who step into its embrace to become part of its story, to feel its pulse, to imagine its spectacle, and to marvel at the extraordinary achievement that is the Colosseum. And as you explore the corridors and arches further, the Colosseum continues to reveal its astonishing complexity, for every stone tells a story, every crack and weathered surface, a memory of the countless individuals who once walked these halls, gladiators practicing their deadly art, slaves carrying equipment and setting up elaborate props, artisans carving statues and reliefs to adorn the arches, Engineers meticulously calculating angles and weights to ensure the structure's stability for thousands of spectators, and every layer of construction reflects not only technical brilliance, but a careful attention to human experience, social, hierarchy, and theatrical drama, as the emperor and senators observed the games from the lowest marble seats with power and prestige visible to all, while ordinary citizens, artisans, and merchants watched from the middle tiers, and women, slaves, and the lower classes occupied the upper wooden sections, all sharing in the communal experience of anticipation, awe, fear, and excitement, a wave of emotion amplified by the sheer scale of the arena, the acoustics designed to carry every sound from the clash of swords to the roar of exotic animals across tens of thousands of spectators, and beneath the sand, the hypogym functioned as an extraordinary machine, with pulleys, lifts, trapdoors, and tunnels moving gladiators, animals, and props into perfect position to orchestrate moments of surprise and drama, while the velarium, overhead, stretched like a massive sail and manipulated by skilled sailors provided shade and added a flowing, dynamic visual element that shifted with the wind and sunlight, enhancing the spectacle, and as the day progressed, shadows moved across the arena floor, highlighting textures, inscriptions, and carvings, while sunlight glinted off armor, weapons, and the stone itself, creating a living interplay of light and movement. And as you imagine the festivals that could last for days, combining mock naval battles, historical reenactments, theatrical performances of myths and legends and hunts of exotic beasts, it becomes clear that the Colosseum was not merely a stage for entertainment, but a tool for politics, power, propaganda, and social cohesion. A place where the might of the empire, the ingenuity of engineers, the artistry of sculptors, and the courage of gladiators merged into an overwhelming sensory and emotional experience. And as one traces the worn steps, imagining the flow of crowds moving efficiently through radial corridors, guided by numbered entrances and careful design, one can almost feel the pulse of tens of thousands of spectators, their collective energy, shaping the atmosphere while beneath the surface in hidden chambers and corridors. The unseen choreography of the hypogym continues to fascinate, revealing the brilliance and precision required to stage spectacles that could combine life and death, surprise, drama, and storytelling in perfect harmony. And as your gaze rises to the arches, some still standing, some weathered by centuries of wind, rain, and earthquakes, the engineering mastery is evident. For each arch not only supports weight, but frames the experience, creating sightlines and shaping how the audience perceives the spectacle, while niches, reliefs, and inscriptions communicate power, legacy, and cultural identity, and even the sand on the arena floor bears witness to countless combats, every grain holding the memory of struggle, courage, and performance, absorbing both sweat and blood, while echoing with the imagined cries of spectators and the rhythm of combat. And as the mind wanders to the surrounding city, one can picture the streets, markets, temples, and homes feeding life into the Colosseum, the smells, sounds, and movement of daily Roman life blending with the drama within the arena, creating a multisensory, immersive environment, a fusion of urban culture and monumental architecture. And as one reflects on the gladiators, their training, discipline, bravery, and the constant negotiation between life and death, and on the exotic animals brought from across the empire, the elephants, lions, leopards, and other creatures whose presence added danger, drama, and awe, it becomes clear that every detail was planned to engage, surprise, and captivate, transforming the Colosseum into a living narrative that combines engineering, artistry, society, theater, and human emotion in a single, breathtaking structure. And as centuries passed and the Colosseum endured earthquakes, invasions, neglect, and the passage of time, it remained a symbol of ingenuity, power, ambition, and spectacle, a place where the imagination can roam freely, reconstructing scenes of triumph, fear, excitement, courage, and drama, where one can feel the pulse of history reverberating through stone, sand, arches, and corridors, and where every visitor today, standing among the ruins, tracing worn stones with their hands, imagining the sounds, smells, sights, and energy of ancient Rome, participates in a living story, a story that continues to grow, expand, and resonate, a narrative that merges architecture, history, society, engineering, drama, courage, and human spirit into a single continuous experience. A story that stretches across millennia and invites awe, reflection, and deep appreciation, reminding all who enter that the Colosseum is more than a building, more than a ruin, more than a historical site. It is a living, breathing testament to human imagination, creativity, endurance, and ambition, a monument where the extraordinary convergence of life, death, courage, art, technology, and society can be felt in every step, every glance, every breath, and every shadow, a single unbroken narrative that continues endlessly, inviting each observer to immerse themselves fully, to feel the pulse of ancient Rome, and to marvel at the genius, drama, and human spirit embedded in every stone, every arch, and every grain of sand, a story that is as infinite as it is immersive, as monumental as it is intricate, as timeless as it is alive, a story that is the Colosseum itself, an eternal chronicle of ambition, spectacle, courage, and imagination. And as your gaze wanders across the vast expanse of the Colosseum, the scale and ambition of the structure become increasingly apparent, for it is not merely a collection of stone, concrete, and arches, but a monumental expression of human creativity, ambition, and ingenuity, a place where engineering, architecture, society, theater, and human emotion converge into a single, overwhelming experience, a space where every stone, every arch, every corridor carries the memory of countless individuals who contributed to its creation and operation, from the skilled architects who calculated every angle, weight distribution, and sightline, to the laborers and craftsmen who shaped and placed each block with painstaking precision, to the sculptors who adorned niches with statues of gods, emperors, and heroes, to the engineers who designed the hypogeum, that intricate underground network of tunnels, lifts, and trapdoors that orchestrated the dramatic entrances of gladiators, exotic animals, and scenery, creating moments of surprise, awe, and suspense for the tens of thousands of spectators above, to the sailors who manipulated the massive velarium to provide shade and visual drama, their coordination and skill a marvel of human ingenuity, to the gladiators themselves, whose courage, skill, and discipline turned the arena into a stage of life and death, their movements choreographed yet unpredictable, their actions amplified by the tension and anticipation of the crowd, and as you imagine the audience, a living entity of tens of thousands of spectators, their collective energy, excitement, fear, and admiration merging into a single wave of sound that reverberated through the arches, carrying emotion across every tier, from the emperor and senators in marble comfort at the lowest levels, to ordinary citizens in the mid-tiers, to women, slaves, and the lower classes in the upper wooden benches, all participating in a shared experience that was as social and political as it was entertaining, a reflection of the hierarchical yet interconnected society of ancient Rome. And as your imagination reconstructs the spectacles, mock naval battles where the arena was flooded, historical reenactments that taught lessons of valor and conquest, hunts of exotic beasts from distant lands that displayed Rome's dominion over nature and the far reaches of the empire, theatrical performances of myths and legends that entertained and instructed simultaneously, it becomes clear that the Colosseum was a stage on which every aspect of Roman life, culture, power, and ambition was displayed. And even today, standing amid the ruins, tracing the worn stones with your fingers, imagining the clash of swords, the roar of lions, the gasps and cheers of spectators, the smell of dust, sweat, roasted meats, and wine, the sunlight glinting off armor and stone, the shadow of the velarium shifting with the wind, and the rhythm of human activity flowing through corridors and staircases, one can feel the pulse of history reverberating through every inch of this monumental structure, a pulse that connects the past and present, imagination and reality, life and memory, courage and spectacle, artistry and engineering. For the Colosseum is more than architecture. It is a living, breathing chronicle of human experience, a single continuous story written in stone, sand, shadow, sound, and imagination. A story that encompasses ambition, creativity, power, courage, drama, society, and endurance. a story that stretches across millennia, inviting all who enter to step into its embrace, feel its pulse, witness its spectacle, and marvel at the extraordinary convergence of human ingenuity, creativity, and spirit. A story so vast, layered, immersive, and unbroken that it defies containment, yet continues endlessly in the mind, heart, and imagination of every visitor who walks its corridors, ascends its tiers, or envisions the lives and dramas of the past. For standing in the Colosseum is to step into a living narrative, to become part of a continuum that links thousands of years of ambition, courage, and spectacle, and to experience firsthand the awe-inspiring magnitude, the meticulous detail, the human drama, and the eternal resonance that make this ancient arena one of the most remarkable and enduring monuments in the world, a single, unbroken, timeless testament to the power of architecture, history, society, engineering, artistry, and imagination, a place where the pulse of civilization, human ambition, and creativity can be felt in every stone, every shadow, every echo, every breath, every heartbeat, and where the story, the spectacle, and the legacy of Rome continue to unfold, expand, and resonate without end, inviting awe, reflection, inspiration, and wonder. For the Colosseum is not simply a ruin, but a living experience, a continuous, monumental narrative, a convergence of all that humanity has achieved, imagined, and endured, a story that stretches across time and space, an eternal chronicle of ambition, courage, artistry, engineering, drama, society, and the unyielding human desire to create something that transcends mortality, something that inspires, awes, educates, and moves all who encounter it, a story so vast, immersive, and intricate that it cannot be captured in fragments, but must be experienced as a single, continuous, unbroken narrative that encompasses architecture, history, society, spectacle, emotion, and imagination. A narrative that is the Colosseum itself, a living testament to the ingenuity, ambition, courage, and creativity of humanity. A pulse that continues to resonate through time, inviting every visitor to step inside, feel it, and become part of the story. A story that is infinite, monumental, unbroken, and eternal. And as you walk along the outer corridors, the magnitude of Roman ambition and vision becomes ever more apparent. For the Colosseum is not merely a building, but an extraordinary testament to human ingenuity, a place where architecture, engineering, art, society, theater, and history converge into a singular, living narrative that stretches across millennia, a structure where every stone, every arch, every carved inscription carries the imprint of countless lives, the laborers who hauled and shaped travertine blocks with painstaking care, the artisans who sculpted statues and reliefs that once adorned the arches, the engineers who designed the hypogeum, an underground labyrinth of tunnels, lifts, and trapdoors, allowing gladiators, exotic animals, and elaborate scenery to enter the arena with precision and surprise, creating moments of drama, suspense, and awe for the tens of thousands of spectators above. The sailors who operated the massive velarium to provide shade while adding a flowing, dynamic element to the arena, the gladiators themselves, whose courage, skill, and discipline transformed the arena into a theater of life and death, and the spectators, a living organism of emotion, anticipation, and excitement, from the emperor and senators in their marble seats at the lowest tiers, asserting power and visibility, to ordinary citizens and artisans in the mid-levels, to women, slaves, and lower-class spectators in the upper wooden benches, all participating in a communal experience that was as social, political, and educational as it was entertaining. And as your imagination reconstructs the spectacles, mock naval battles where the arena was flooded, reenactments of historic battles, theatrical presentations of myths and legends, hunts of exotic animals brought from Africa, Asia, and the far reaches of the empire, all meticulously orchestrated to captivate, educate, and impress. It becomes evident that the Colosseum was a multi-dimensional stage for power, storytelling, and human emotion, where every aspect of Roman society, culture, and ingenuity was on display. And as centuries passed, Earthquakes shook the foundations, invasions ravaged sections, and yet the Colosseum endured, a resilient symbol of human ambition, creativity, and resilience. And today, as modern visitors walk these corridors tracing the worn stones, feeling the texture of weathered travertine under their fingertips, imagining the clash of swords, the roar of the crowd, the cries of lions and tigers, the trumpet blasts, the laughter, gasps, and prayers of ancient spectators, they become part of an unbroken narrative that spans millennia. A living story told in stone, sand, shadow, sound, and imagination. A story that encompasses courage, drama, artistry, engineering, social order, spectacle, and the relentless human desire to create experiences that transcend time. And as one observes the arches and corridors, the niches where statues of gods, emperors, and heroes once stood, the radial staircases designed for efficient crowd flow, and the meticulous organization of seating to reflect social hierarchy, the magnitude of Roman planning and foresight becomes clear, as does the remarkable understanding of human psychology, acoustics, and drama for every element. From the shadows cast by the velarium, to the angle of a staircase, to the placement of a gate, contributed to the immersive experience of the games, where life and death, courage and fear, triumph and despair played out in front of tens of thousands, all bound together by the shared pulse of anticipation and emotion. And, as one imagines the gladiators preparing in their barracks, honing their skills, enduring pain and training for years, the exotic animals transported from distant lands, the intricate props and scenery lifted from the hippodrome with mechanical precision, the orchestration of festivals spanning days, and the sheer scale of human endeavor required to create these spectacles, it becomes clear that the Colosseum was more than an arena. It was a microcosm of Roman civilization, a space where human ambition, creativity, engineering, and courage converged to produce experiences of unmatched drama and spectacle. And, even as the centuries have worn away the marble, the stone, and the grandeur, the echoes of history remain, resonating through every arch, corridor, and scar in the stone, inviting awe, reflection, and imagination, allowing every visitor to feel, in their bones, the pulse of a civilization that sought to impress, educate, and inspire, a pulse that stretches across time, linking ancient spectators, gladiators, artisans, and emperors with the modern observer, a pulse that transforms the Colosseum from a ruin into a living narrative, a continuous story of courage, spectacle, ingenuity, and human spirit. And as the sunlight shifts across the arena floor, illuminating textures, highlighting inscriptions, casting shadows, and creating dynamic visual patterns, the interplay of light and architecture reminds us that the Colosseum was designed not only for strength and function, but for drama, for aesthetic impact, for engagement, and for emotion, every detail intentional, every element part of a grand performance. And as one imagines the ebb and flow of crowds, the energy, noise, anticipation, the smells of food, dust, sweat, the laughter, cries, and gasps that filled the air, and the bravery of those who risked their lives for fame, glory, or survival, one realizes that this single structure embodies the triumphs, ingenuity, resilience, drama, and ambition of humanity itself. A structure that tells stories of life, death, courage, and creativity in ways that transcend time. A structure where the past is palpable, present is immersive, and imagination can roam freely, creating an unbroken narrative that is as vast, layered, and immersive as human history itself, and where every visitor today becomes part of the continuum, tracing the stone, imagining the sounds and movements, feeling the tension, drama, and beauty, and understanding that the Colosseum is more than architecture, more than history, more than spectacle. It is a living, breathing monument to the extraordinary capabilities, imagination, courage, and ambition of humanity. A monument that continues to resonate, inspire, and awe. A single continuous paragraph of history, emotion, architecture, drama, society, spectacle, and human spirit, stretching across millennia and inviting every observer to experience, reflect, and marvel at the remarkable legacy of one of the greatest creations of civilization, the Colosseum itself. And as your eyes move from the grand arches to the radial corridors, staircases and seating tiers, the full magnitude of Roman engineering and social planning becomes astonishingly clear. For the Colosseum was not merely a venue for games, but a meticulously designed theater of human ambition, emotion, and spectacle, where every element, from the carved inscriptions marking entrances, to the carefully calculated angles of seating, to the corridors designed for efficient movement of tens of thousands of spectators, was conceived with precision to maximize both visibility and impact. And as you imagine the crowd flowing through these corridors, the excitement palpable, their voices rising and falling like a living organism, the anticipation of what would unfold on the arena floor creating a collective heartbeat that pulsed through every stone, every arch, every niche. It becomes evident that this was more than entertainment. It was a social, political, and cultural phenomenon, a microcosm of Roman society itself, where status, hierarchy, and power were displayed and reinforced alongside skill, courage, and drama, and beneath the arena floor, the hypogum, a labyrinth of tunnels, cages, lifts, and trapdoors, functioned with almost mechanical precision, orchestrating the entrances of gladiators, exotic animals, props, and scenery, with timing so exact that even the slightest miscalculation could disrupt the drama. And as you picture, the gladiators themselves, trained from childhood in distant ludus, their bodies honed, their minds sharpened, their courage tested, the tension and intensity of the arena comes alive, a blend of skill, strategy, fear, and determination, while the exotic beasts, elephants, lions, tigers, and leopards, transported from distant corners of the empire, added an element of unpredictability, danger, and awe, demonstrating Rome's reach, power, and ambition. And as the sun shifts, casting dynamic shadows through the arches, highlighting textures, inscriptions, and reliefs, the interplay of light and stone creates a living, breathing stage, while the massive velarium overhead, stretched and adjusted by skilled sailors, not only provided shade, but added flowing, moving drama to the architecture, its shadows and motion influencing how spectators experience the spectacle. And as you imagine festivals lasting days combining theatrical reenactments, naval battles where the arena was flooded, hunts of exotic animals, mythological plays, and displays of military might, it becomes clear that the Colosseum was a stage where life, death, courage, drama, politics, and artistry converged in ways unmatched in the ancient world. And even today, as visitors walk the worn stones, tracing every scar, imagining the sounds of swords clashing, the roar of the crowd, the cries of animals, the blare of trumpets, the laughter, gasps, and prayers, they enter a narrative that spans millennia, a living, breathing story written in stone, sand, shadow, and imagination, encompassing the brilliance of engineering, the skill of artisans, the courage of gladiators, the energy of spectators, and the vision of emperors. And as you reflect on the urban environment surrounding the Colosseum, the streets, markets, temples, homes, and the distant Tiber River, you realize that the arena was deeply connected to the life of the city, feeding on its energy, culture, and commerce, while simultaneously influencing society through spectacle, education, and the reinforcement of hierarchy and order. And as centuries passed, the Colosseum endured earthquakes, fires, invasions, and the inevitable erosion of time, yet it continues to convey the story of Roman ambition, ingenuity, courage, and spectacle, a story that can be felt in every step, every touch, every glance, every shadow, and every imagined sound, a story that invites reflection, awe, and immersion, a story where architecture, history, society, art, courage, and human emotion merge seamlessly. And as you stand among the arches tracing the worn travertine, imagining the glint of sunlight on armor, the movement of the crowd, the sudden roar of a lion, the tension of a gladiator poised for combat, the drama, the fear, the anticipation, it becomes impossible not to feel the pulse of history, the heartbeat of an empire, and the living spirit of human creativity, resilience, and ambition. For the Colosseum is not merely a ruin, not merely a building, not merely a historical site, but a living, breathing narrative, a single, continuous, unbroken story that encompasses thousands of years, infinite human experiences, extraordinary ambition, and the boundless capacity for imagination. And as you imagine the artisans shaping stone, the sculptors carving reliefs, the engineers calculating arches and corridors, the sailors manipulating the velarium, the gladiators preparing for combat, the exotic animals brought from across the empire, the orchestration of festivals, the flow of crowds, the anticipation, tension, excitement, and emotion, the Colosseum emerges as a singular testament to humanity's ability to create, inspire, awe, and endure, a monument that stretches across time and space, connecting the ancient past to the modern present, linking imagination, memory, and reality in a single continuous immersive experience, a story that can never truly be completed, a story that continues endlessly in stone, sand, shadow, sound, and the hearts and minds of all who witness, walk, and imagine, a story that is the Colosseum itself, eternal, monumental, unbroken, and infinite, a pulse of history, courage, drama, art, engineering, society, and imagination that continues to resonate across millennia, inviting every visitor to step inside, feel, imagine, marvel, and become part of a living, breathing narrative that defies time and continues to inspire, awe, and humble all who enter its monumental embrace, a narrative that is as infinite, immersive, and intricate as the civilization that created it, a single, unbroken, continuous story, the Colosseum itself. And as your eyes move from the arches to the seating tiers, staircases, and corridors, the Colosseum's scale, ambition, and ingenuity become even more overwhelming, for it was conceived not merely as a building, but as a monumental narrative of human creativity, courage, and spectacle, where every stone, every carved relief, every shadow, every scar, every corridor, every entrance, every tier, tells a story of human experience across millennia, from the architects who calculated angles, load-bearing capacities, sightlines, and acoustics with precision to create a space where tens of thousands could move, see, and hear with clarity, to the laborers who transported massive travertine, blocks from quarries, carving and placing them with care and strength, to the artisans who sculpted statues, reliefs, inscriptions, and decorative elements that adorned the arches and niches, communicating both cultural values and imperial power, to the engineers who designed the hypogeum, that subterranean labyrinth of tunnels, lifts, cages, and trapdoors that allowed gladiators, exotic animals, scenery, and props to enter the arena with perfect timing, orchestrating moments of drama, surprise, and spectacle, to the sailors who operated the massive velarium overhead, adjusting it to provide shade while creating dynamic movement and shifting shadows across the arena floor, adding visual, drama, and altering the sensory experience, to the gladiators themselves trained from youth in distant ludus, their bodies sculpted by rigorous training, their minds honed for strategy and combat, their courage tested constantly, knowing that every encounter could mean life or death, and the spectators, a living organism of emotion and anticipation, from emperors and senators in marble comfort at the lowest tiers, asserting visibility and authority, to ordinary citizens and artisans in mid-level seats, to women, slaves, and lower-class spectators in the upper wooden tiers, all bound together in a shared communal experience of awe, excitement, fear, and drama, while the arena itself became a stage for extraordinary events, mock naval battles where the arena was flooded to recreate epic sea conflicts, hunts of exotic beasts brought from Africa, Asia, and the furthest reaches of the empire, theatrical reenactments of historic battles and mythological stories, military demonstrations and gladiatorial combat, each carefully orchestrated to captivate, instruct, and impress. And as centuries passed, earthquakes shook the foundations, fires damaged sections, invasions left their marks. Yet the Colosseum endured, standing as a resilient symbol of human ingenuity, courage, ambition, and creativity. And as you imagine the full sensory experience, the clanging of weapons, the roar of the crowd, the trumpet blasts, the gasps and laughter of spectators, the scent of dust, sweat, roasted meats, and wine, the glint of sunlight on armor and stone, the rustle of the velarium above, the distant sounds of the city flowing into the arena, the Colosseum transforms from mere ruins into a living, breathing narrative, a single unbroken story of human achievement, drama, and spectacle, a story that encompasses engineering brilliance, artistic skill, social hierarchy, theatrical mastery, courage, emotion, and the unyielding human desire to create experiences that transcend time. And as your imagination explores the urban context, the streets, markets, temples, homes, and the Tiber River surrounding the arena, it becomes clear that the Colosseum was deeply integrated into the life of Rome itself, feeding on the city's energy and culture while shaping society through spectacle, civic engagement, and political messaging. And as you envision the preparation of festivals lasting days, the transport of exotic animals, the rehearsals of gladiators, the creation of props, the manipulation of scenery, the coordination of thousands of participants, the precision of timing, and the interplay of light, shadow, and movement, the mind reels at the complexity, ingenuity, and sheer ambition required. And as visitors today walk the worn stones, trace the arches, stand in awe of the scale, imagine the roar of the crowd, the clash of weapons, the cries of animals, the anticipation and courage of gladiators, and the orchestration of events. They enter a living narrative that spans millennia, connecting ancient Rome to the present, imagination to reality, and past spectators to modern observers. For the Colosseum is more than a building, more than a ruin, more than history. It is a living story, a continuous, unbroken, immersive, monumental narrative encompassing courage, spectacle, drama, artistry, engineering, society, power, imagination, and the enduring human spirit, a pulse of human achievement that resonates across time, inviting every visitor to step inside, feel it, marvel, reflect, imagine, and become part of a living, breathing story, a narrative that continues endlessly, infinitely, unbroken. A story that is the Colosseum itself, eternal, monumental, immersive, and alive, stretching across centuries, encompassing thousands of lives, countless acts of courage, innumerable spectacles, artistic genius, engineering marvels, social interaction, political theater, human emotion, the ebb and flow of history, and the infinite capacity of the human imagination to create, inspire, awe, and endure. And as you move your gaze from the grand arches to the worn stone corridors, staircases, and seating tiers, the Colosseum reveals itself as more than a building. It is a monumental narrative, a living story written in stone, sand, shadow, and imagination, where every detail, from the carved inscriptions marking entrances and seating sections, to the radial corridors that allowed tens of thousands of spectators to move safely, to the intricately designed hypogeum beneath the arena floor, a labyrinth of tunnels, lifts, cages, and trapdoors orchestrating the dramatic entrances of gladiators, exotic animals, and scenery, contributes to a narrative of human ambition, ingenuity, courage, and drama. And as you imagine the spectators flowing through the corridors, the collective energy rising and falling like a living organism, the anticipation building as they take their seats, from emperors and senators in marble comfort at the lowest tiers asserting authority and visibility, to ordinary citizens and artisans in the mid-levels, to women, slaves, and lower-class spectators in the upper wooden benches, all participating. In a shared, immersive experience, it becomes clear that the Colosseum was a microcosm of Roman society, hierarchy, and culture, where social status, power, and human emotion were intertwined with spectacle, entertainment, and civic engagement. And as the sun shifts, casting moving shadows across the arena, highlighting textures, inscriptions, reliefs, and niches that once held statues of gods, emperors, and heroes, the interplay of light and architecture transforms the arena into a living stage, while the massive velarium overhead, manipulated by skilled sailors, provides shade and adds a dynamic visual element, shifting with the wind and sunlight, enhancing the drama and sensory experience. And as your imagination reconstructs the spectacles, mock naval battles with the arena flooded to replicate epic sea conflicts, hunts of exotic beasts transported from Africa, Asia, and the farthest reaches of the empire, gladiatorial combat, where skill, strategy, and courage determined life and death, theatrical reenactments of historic events and myths, musical and poetic performances, and multi-day festivals blending military, religious, and civic celebration, it becomes evident that the Colosseum was more than a site of entertainment. It was a living, breathing stage for human ingenuity, creativity, courage, and ambition, a place where engineering, artistry, society, politics, and theater merged into an immersive, overwhelming experience. And as centuries passed, earthquakes, fires, invasions, and the passage of time left their marks on the structure, yet the Colosseum endured, a resilient symbol of human achievement, imagination, and endurance. And today, as visitors walk the worn stones, tracing every crack, imagining the clash of weapons, the roar of the crowd, the cries of animals, the blare of trumpets, the laughter, gasps, and prayers of spectators, they enter a living narrative that spans millennia, connecting the past and present, imagination and reality, life and memory, courage and spectacle, artistry and engineering. And as you reflect on the urban context, the bustling streets, markets, temples, homes, and the Tiber River flowing nearby, it becomes clear that the Colosseum was integrated into the heartbeat of Rome itself, feeding on the city's energy while simultaneously shaping civic life, social interaction, and political messaging. And as you imagine the preparation for festivals, the rehearsal of gladiators, the transport of exotic animals, the creation of props, the coordination of thousands of participants, the orchestration of timing, and the interplay of light, shadow, and movement, the mind reels at the complexity, sophistication, and sheer ambition required to stage events that combined spectacle, danger, storytelling, and social cohesion. And as your imagination expands further to consider the personal experiences of individuals, the gladiators training relentlessly, facing the possibility of death while striving for honor, glory, or freedom, the artisans and engineers pouring skill and creativity into every detail, the spectators experiencing collective tension, excitement, and emotion. The Colosseum emerges not merely as an arena, but as a vessel for human story, a living chronicle of courage, creativity, society, power, and imagination, where every stone, every shadow, every arch, every scar contributes to a narrative that continues to unfold in the minds, hearts, and imaginations of all who encounter it. And as sunlight glints off armor, casts patterns across the sand, highlights reliefs, and shifts through the velarium, the arena transforms into a space of dynamic drama and immersion, where light and shadow, sound and movement, life and death, courage and fear, triumph and despair, artistry and engineering converge into a singular experience. And standing amid the arches, tracing the stone with your hands, imagining the pulse of ancient Rome, the roar of crowds, the clash of swords, the cries of beasts, the spectacle, the tension, and the awe, it becomes clear that the Colosseum is more than architecture, more than history, more than a ruin. It is a living story, a single, unbroken, continuous narrative of human achievement, imagination, courage, and endurance. A monumental, immersive chronicle that stretches across millennia, connecting ancient and modern, imagination and reality, and inviting every observer to become part of its pulse, its drama, its spectacle, and its eternal, infinite narrative, a story that is the Colosseum itself. And as your gaze sweeps across the arena floor, imagining the expanse of sand where countless battles were fought, where the courage, skill, and endurance of gladiators were tested to the limits, the Colosseum reveals itself as a living narrative, a space where human drama, ingenuity, and spectacle converge, where the preparation, rehearsal, and performance of thousands of individuals created experiences of breathtaking complexity, from the artisans carving intricate reliefs and statues, to the engineers operating the hypogem, moving cages, lifts, and props with precise timing, to the sailors manipulating the vast velarium overhead to provide shade while adding flowing visual drama, to the gladiators themselves, honed from childhood in distant ludus, their bodies sculpted by relentless training, their minds sharpened for strategy. their courage tested by the constant proximity of life and death and the spectators, a living organism of tens of thousands, from emperors and senators seated with authority and visibility in marble comfort, to ordinary citizens, artisans, merchants, and the lower classes occupying mid and upper tiers, all participating in a communal experience of awe, excitement, fear, and anticipation, a collective heartbeat that pulsed through stone, corridor, and arch alike. And as the arena hosted spectacles, mock naval battles with water flooding the sand to recreate epic sea conflicts, hunts of exotic animals transported from distant lands to demonstrate Rome's reach, theatrical reenactments of historic battles, mythological plays, poetry, and music, all carefully orchestrated to captivate, educate, and impress, the Colosseum functioned as a stage for the social, political, and cultural ambitions of Rome, reflecting hierarchy, power, artistry, and human emotion. And as centuries passed, earthquakes, fires, and invasions left their marks, yet the structure endured, a testament to resilience, engineering brilliance, and human creativity. And today, as modern visitors walk the worn stones, trace the arches, stand amid the corridors, they can almost hear the imagined clamor of the crowd, the clash of swords, the roar of lions, the blare of trumpets, the laughter, gasps, and prayers, the scent of dust, sweat, roasted meats, and wine filling the air, the sunlight glinting on armor and stone, shadows shifting as the velarium moves, and all of this transforms the Colosseum from mere ruins into a living story, a narrative written in stone, sand, shadow, sound, and imagination, encompassing engineering genius, artistic skill, human courage, theatrical mastery, social hierarchy, and the unyielding human desire to create experiences that transcend time. And as you expand your imagination to the surrounding city, the streets bustling with commerce, markets full of merchants, temples, homes, and the Tiber River flowing nearby, the Colosseum is revealed as the heart of urban life, its energy both fed by and feeding into the rhythm of the city, shaping society, culture, and politics through spectacle, civic engagement, and shared experience. And as you imagine the preparation for grand festivals, the transportation of exotic animals, the rehearsals of gladiators, the creation of scenery and props, the coordination of thousands of participants, and the orchestration of timing and movement, the sheer scale, ambition, and sophistication of Roman planning becomes almost incomprehensible. And as your mind reflects on the individual experiences, the gladiators facing danger and testing their courage, artisans pouring skill and creativity into stone and bronze, engineers and sailors coordinating complex mechanisms, and spectators experiencing the ebb and flow of tension, emotion, and awe, the Colosseum emerges not merely as an arena, but as a living vessel of human story, a monument to ingenuity, courage, creativity, endurance, and imagination, where light and shadow, sound and movement, life and death, triumph and despair, artistry and engineering converge into a singular, immersive, continuous experience. And as sunlight shifts across the arena, illuminating reliefs, inscriptions, textures, and arches, casting dynamic shadows and highlighting the intricate interplay of architecture and environment, the arena transforms into a living stage, where every stone, every arch, every scar, every detail contributes to a narrative that continues to unfold in the minds, hearts, and imaginations of those who witness it, connecting ancient spectators, gladiators, artisans, and emperors with modern visitors, imagination with reality, past with present, and creating an unbroken, continuous story that is as infinite, immersive, and monumental as human civilization itself. A pulse of history, courage, artistry, drama, engineering, society, spectacle, and imagination that resonates across millennia, inviting every observer to step inside, feel, reflect, marvel, and become part of the living, breathing narrative. That is the Colosseum itself, eternal, unbroken, monumental, and alive, stretching across time, encompassing thousands of lives, innumerable acts of courage, countless spectacles, artistic genius, engineering mastery, societal structures, human emotion, the ebb and flow of history, and the limitless capacity of the human imagination to create, inspire, awe, and endure, a single continuous unbroken narrative that is simultaneously historical, architectural, social, artistic, emotional, and philosophical, a narrative that continues endlessly, infinitely, a story that is the Colosseum itself. And as your imagination wanders further into the depths of the Colosseum, picturing the worn sand of the arena floor where countless gladiators faced not only each other, but the uncertainty of life and death, the structure reveals itself as an immense chronicle of human ambition, courage, artistry, and ingenuity, where every arch, corridor, staircase, and seating tier contributes to a single, continuous story. And as you envision the gladiators preparing, in distant ludus honing their bodies and minds with relentless discipline, the air filled with the tension of anticipation and the weight of mortality, their swords gleaming under the sunlight filtering through the arches, the sound of training echoing through corridors, the scent of sweat, leather, and sand mixing into an almost palpable aura of expectation, the Colosseum becomes not merely an architectural marvel but a living organism, a theater of emotion, social hierarchy, spectacle, and drama, while beneath the arena, in the hippodrome, the intricate network of tunnels, lifts, cages, and trapdoors hums with unseen activity, orchestrated by engineers who calculated every movement, with precision to ensure that the entrances of gladiators, exotic animals, and scenery occur with perfect timing, producing moments of awe, suspense, and exhilaration for the tens of thousands of spectators above, who themselves form a living, breathing organism. Their cheers, gasps, laughter, and prayers merging into a collective energy that courses through the stone and arches, resonating in every niche, every relief, every worn step, and as the sun shifts, the interplay of light and shadow across the arena, illuminating textures, inscriptions, statues, and carvings, creates a dynamic visual drama, while the velarium overhead, manipulated by skilled sailors, flows and shifts with the wind, providing shade and adding movement, heightening the immersive experience. And as you imagine the festivals, some spanning days, combining mock naval battles with arenas flooded to recreate epic sea conflicts, hunts of lions, tigers, leopards, and elephants transported from distant lands to demonstrate Rome's reach and power, theatrical reenactments of historic events, mythological stories, poetry, music, and martial demonstrations. The scale of human organization, ambition, and artistry becomes staggering, for these were not merely shows but complex orchestrations of drama, politics, education, and societal reinforcement. And as centuries pass through earthquakes, fires, invasions, and the erosion of time, the Colosseum remains standing, a resilient symbol of the enduring human spirit. And as visitors today tread, the worn stones trace the arches. Imagine the clash of swords, the roar of the crowd, the cries of beasts, the blare of trumpets, the gasps and laughter, the mingled scents of dust, sweat, food, and wine, and the shifting patterns of sunlight and shadow across the arena. The Colosseum transforms from a ruin into a living story, a narrative written in stone, sand, shadow, sound, and imagination, encompassing engineering brilliance, artistic skill, courage, social structure, theatrical mastery, and the unyielding desire of humans to create experiences that transcend time. And as you expand your vision to the surrounding city, the bustling streets, marketplaces, temples, homes, distant Tiber River, the Colosseum is revealed as the nucleus of Roman urban life, integrated into society's rhythm, feeding and being fed by the energy, commerce, culture, and politics of the city. And as you imagine the preparation for grand festivals, the rehearsal of gladiators, the transportation of exotic animals, the assembly of props, the coordination of hundreds of participants, the orchestration of timing, the interplay of light, shadow, sound, and movement, the sheer scale, ambition, and sophistication of Roman planning becomes almost unimaginable. And as you reflect on individual human experiences, the gladiators facing danger, demonstrating courage and skill, striving for honor, fame, or freedom, the artisans channeling creativity into stone, bronze, and architectural detail, the engineers coordinating underground mechanisms, the sailors manipulating the velarium, the spectators experiencing the ebb and flow of emotion, tension, and awe. The Colosseum emerges not merely as an arena, but as a living chronicle of human story, a monument to imagination, creativity, courage, and endurance, where architecture, engineering, artistry, social order, theatrical performance, human emotion, and historical legacy converge into an immersive, continuous experience. And as the sunlight shifts across arches, corridors, tiers, reliefs, and statues casting shadows and highlighting intricate details, the arena transforms into a dynamic stage where every stone, every arch, every worn step, every scar, every carving, every shadow contributes to a narrative that continues to unfold in the minds, hearts, and imaginations of those who witness it, connecting ancient spectators, gladiators, artisans, and emperors with modern observers, imagination with reality, past with present, producing an unbroken, infinite story of courage, spectacle, artistry, engineering, drama, society, human emotion, and ambition, a pulse of history that resonates across centuries, inviting every visitor to step inside, feel it, marvel, reflect, imagine, and become part of the living, breathing narrative that is the Colosseum itself. Eternal, monumental, unbroken, immersive, alive, stretching across time, encompassing thousands of lives, countless acts of bravery, innumerable spectacles, artistic mastery, engineering genius, societal intricacies, human emotion, historical events, and the limitless capacity of imagination to create, inspire, awe, and endure. A single, unbroken, continuous story that is simultaneously architectural, historical, social, artistic, emotional, philosophical, and eternal. A narrative that continues endlessly, infinitely, a story that is the Colosseum itself. And as your imagination delves deeper into the vastness of the Colosseum, picturing the arena floor where sand was stained by the courage, blood, and determination of countless gladiators, each fight a blend of skill, strategy, and human emotion, the structure transforms into a living chronicle of ambition, artistry, society, and drama, where every arch, corridor, and tier carries centuries of stories. And as you envision the gladiators training from childhood in distant Ludus, their bodies sculpted through relentless discipline, their minds sharpened for anticipation, tactics, and endurance, the air seems thick with the echo of their exertion, the sound of wooden swords striking, the shuffle of feet, the tense breathing before combat, the weight of armor pressing down, the scent of sweat, leather, and sand intermingling, creating a palpable sense of anticipation and risk. While beneath the arena, the hypogeum hums with mechanical activity, a subterranean network of lifts, cages, and trapdoors orchestrating the sudden and dramatic entrances of gladiators, animals, and elaborate scenery, all synchronized with precision, creating moments of awe and tension that ripple through the crowd above. And as the spectators themselves form a living organism of energy, excitement, and emotion, their voices rising and falling like a tide, cheering, gasping, laughing, praying, and lamenting in unison, from emperors and senators in marble comfort at the lowest tiers, to ordinary citizens in mid-level seats, to women, slaves, and the lower classes in the upper benches, all immersed in the shared spectacle, participating simultaneously in entertainment, social interaction, and political observation, while the sun shifts across the arena, illuminating reliefs, inscriptions, statues, and the intricate masonry, and the massive velarium overhead sways gently with the wind, casting flowing shadows that enhance the drama and dynamism of the space. And as you imagine the grand festivals, some lasting multiple days, combining mock naval battles where the arena is flooded, hunts of exotic animals transported from Africa, Asia, and the furthest reaches of the empire, theatrical reenactments of battles, mythological stories, music, poetry, and martial demonstrations, the organizational complexity, ambition, and artistry of Roman planning comes into sharp focus. For these events were not mere entertainment, but multifaceted expressions of culture, power, social hierarchy, and civic identity. And as centuries pass, the Colosseum withstands earthquakes, fires, invasions, and the erosion of time. Yet it endures, a resilient testament to human ingenuity, creativity, courage, and endurance, and as modern visitors tread the worn stones, tracing arches, corridors, staircases, imagining the clash of weapons, the roar of crowds, the cries of lions, the blare of trumpets, the anticipation, excitement, and fear, the Colosseum becomes a living story, written in stone, sand, shadow, sound, and imagination, encompassing engineering brilliance, artistic skill, human courage, social structure, theatrical mastery, and the unyielding desire to create experiences that transcend time. And as your vision expands to the city surrounding the arena, the bustling streets, markets, temples, homes, and the Tiber River flowing nearby, the Colosseum reveals itself as the nucleus of urban life, feeding and being fed by the energy, commerce, culture, and politics of Rome. And as you imagine the preparation for festivals, the transportation of exotic animals, the rehearsal of gladiators, the assembly of scenery and props, the coordination of hundreds of participants, the orchestration of timing, the interplay of light, shadow, sound, and movement, the scale, ambition, and sophistication of Roman planning becomes almost incomprehensible. And as you reflect on individual human experiences, the gladiators confronting danger with skill and courage, striving for honor, fame, or freedom, the artisans channeling creativity into stone, bronze, and architectural details, engineers operating complex mechanisms, sailors manipulating the velarium, spectators experiencing tension, awe, and delight. The Colosseum emerges as more than an arena, but a living vessel of human narrative, a monument to imagination, courage, creativity, endurance, and engineering mastery, where architecture, society, drama, art, emotion, and history converge into a singular, immersive, continuous experience. And as sunlight shifts across arches, corridors, tiers, reliefs, and statues, casting shadows and illuminating details, the arena transforms into a dynamic stage, where every stone, arch, step, scar, and carving contributes to a narrative that continues to unfold in the minds, hearts, and imaginations of all who encounter it, connecting ancient spectators, gladiators, artisans, and emperors with modern visitors, imagination with reality, past with present, producing an unbroken infinite story of courage, spectacle, artistry, engineering, drama, society, human emotion, and ambition, a pulse of history that resonates across centuries, inviting every visitor to step inside, feel it, marvel, reflect, imagine, and become part of the living, breathing narrative that is the Colosseum itself, eternal, monumental, unbroken, immersive, alive, stretching across time, encompassing thousands of lives, countless acts of bravery, innumerable spectacles, artistic mastery, engineering genius, societal intricacies, human emotion, historical events, and the limitless capacity of imagination to create, inspire, awe, and endure, a single, unbroken, continuous story that is simultaneously architectural, historical, social, artistic, emotional, philosophical, and eternal, a narrative that continues, endlessly, infinitely, a story that is the Colosseum itself. And as your imagination wanders through the immense Colosseum, picturing the arena floor where the sand was worn smooth by the countless footsteps of gladiators, their bodies honed to perfection through rigorous training, their minds sharpened for combat, strategy, and survival, each battle a blend of courage, skill, and calculated risk, the Colosseum emerges as a living testament to human ambition, artistry, society, and drama, where every arch, corridor, staircase, and seating tier contributes to a single, continuous narrative. And as you imagine the gladiators preparing in distant ludus, the metallic clang of training weapons echoing through halls, the exertion of muscles, the shuffle of feet, the rapid intake of breath, the weight of armor pressing against skin, the scent of leather, sweat, and dust mixing in the warm Roman air, the anticipation of facing not only each other but the unpredictability of life and death. The Colosseum becomes more than architecture. It transforms into a living organism, a theater of human emotion, social hierarchy, and spectacle, while beneath the arena, the hypogym operates with unseen precision, a complex network of tunnels, lifts, cages, and trapdoors, orchestrating the dramatic entrances of gladiators, exotic animals, and props, each movement timed to perfection to create awe, suspense, and exhilaration. And above, the crowd itself is a living entity, tens of thousands of spectators from emperors and senators in marble seats asserting authority, to ordinary citizens, artisans, merchants, women, slaves, and children, all participating in a communal experience of excitement, tension, and wonder, their cheers, gasps, laughter, and prayers merging into a single collective pulse that courses through the stone and arches, resonating with every niche, relief, and worn step. And as sunlight shifts across the arena, illuminating statues, carvings, inscriptions, and textures, the interplay of light and shadow transforms the space into a dynamic, immersive stage, while the massive velarium overhead flows with the wind, casting moving shadows, providing shade, and enhancing the drama of the spectacle. And as you envision the festivals, some lasting multiple days, combining mock naval battles where the arena is flooded, hunts of exotic animals from Africa, Asia, and beyond, theatrical reenactments of myth and history, poetry, music, and martial demonstrations, the organizational ambition and creative genius of the Romans becomes almost incomprehensible. For these events were not mere entertainment but complex expressions of culture, politics, social hierarchy, and civic identity. And as centuries pass, the Colosseum withstands earthquakes, fires, invasions, and the erosion of time. Yet it endures, a resilient monument to human ingenuity, creativity, courage, and endurance. And as modern visitors walk the worn stones, trace arches, corridors, and staircases, imagine the clash of swords, the roar of the crowd, the cries of exotic animals, the blare of trumpets, the collective anticipation and excitement. The Colosseum transforms from ruin into a living story, written in stone, sand, shadow, sound, and imagination, encompassing engineering brilliance, artistic skill, human courage, social hierarchy, theatrical mastery, and the unyielding desire to create experiences that transcend time. And as your vision expands to include the surrounding urban environment, the bustling streets, markets, temples, homes, and the Tiber River flowing nearby, the Colosseum is revealed as the nucleus of Rome itself, integrated into the rhythm of civic life, feeding and being fed by commerce, culture, politics, and social interaction. And as you imagine the preparation for festivals, the movement of exotic animals, rehearsal of gladiators, assembly of scenery and props, coordination of hundreds, orchestration of timing, the interplay of light, shadow, sound, and movement, the scale, ambition, and sophistication of Roman planning becomes overwhelming. And as you reflect on individual experiences, gladiators confronting danger with courage and skill, artisans pouring creativity into stone and bronze, engineers orchestrating complex mechanisms, sailors manipulating the velarium, spectators experiencing awe, tension, and delight. The Colosseum emerges not merely as an arena, but as a living vessel of human narrative, a monument to imagination, creativity, courage, endurance, and engineering mastery, where architecture, society, drama, art, emotion, and history converge into an immersive, continuous experience. And as sunlight shifts across arches, corridors, tiers, reliefs, and statues, casting shadows and illuminating details, the arena transforms into a dynamic stage where every stone, every arch, every worn step, every scar, every carving, every shadow contributes to a narrative that unfolds in the minds, hearts, and imaginations of all who encounter it, connecting ancient spectators, gladiators, artisans, and emperors with modern visitors, imagination with reality, past with present, producing an unbroken, infinite story of courage, spectacle, artistry, engineering, drama, society, human emotion, and ambition, a pulse of history resonating across centuries, inviting every visitor to step inside, feel, marvel, reflect, imagine, and become part of the living, breathing narrative that is the Colosseum itself, eternal, monumental, unbroken, Immersive, alive, stretching across time, encompassing thousands of lives, countless acts of bravery, innumerable spectacles, artistic mastery, engineering genius, societal intricacies, human emotion, historical events, and the limitless capacity of imagination to create, inspire, awe, and endure, a single, unbroken, continuous story that is simultaneously architectural, historical, social, artistic,